It's the Texas weather discussion video for Wednesday, the 10th of October. I'm Donovan Neal. Michael getting ready to make landfall on the northern Florida Panhandle. Cooler, crisp air for the next 2 weeks at least down here in North Texas. So let's take a look at the upper air look across the nation this afternoon. Just dive right in there. Wholly high amplitude with the deep amplitude trough in the off to our west. That's causing all of this cooler air, and of course we'll have Michael on the board. We'll talk about that in just a minute. On the across the nation, we have a huge temperature contrast. We have in the deep south, we have lows mostly starting out in the 70s and 80s in the across the deep south, but go up north in the Rockies where they're starting their mornings below freezing and even into the 20s in some parts of the Rockies. We're just patiently awaiting the days where we start the days below freezing, but that won't be for a while now. On the watch warning map, we have a multitude of watches and warnings. We have winter weather advisories in effect for northern parts of northern Nebraska, and we have subsequent winter weather advisories in effect for parts of the central high plains. We have freeze watches and warnings in effect for parts of Kansas and through parts of western and parts of eastern Colorado, some of the adjacent areas. Flash flood warnings and watches and warnings in effect for parts of the Midwest, including Illinois and parts of Wisconsin. And we have, of course, flash flood warnings in effect for parts of the Carolinas and parts of the Carolinas and parts of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida in advance of Michael. And of course, we have hurricane warnings in effect because of Michael. And we even have a tornado watch that's in effect, which includes parts of southern Georgia and parts of the Florida Panhandle and northeastern Florida. In advance of Hurricane Florence, the theater bands of Florence will obviously bring the chance of a few isolated tornadoes, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And we have a standard slight risk in effect to accompany that risk for a few small isolated tornadoes, which include basically the southern 2/3 of Georgia, southern South Carolina, and parts of Central Florida Panhandle. And this is day two, which is tomorrow. That standard slight risk moves to basically to the Carolinas, the eastern Carolinas, where Hurricane Michael is expected to track mainly to the northeast. And on day three, which is Friday, we only have a marginal risk for Pecos out in the West Texas. This is the average rainfall for the next 7 days. Obviously, most of the rain is associated with Hurricane Michael, but this will be a precursor hurricane. It won't be like Florence. It'll just sit there for days and days and days and dump rain. It'll be a progressive hurricane. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But down here in North Texas, amounts of 2 inches or greater is expected with the that's anything that we see this weekend with the main tropical system coming through main tropical system from the Pacific coming through moving to the northeast towards North Texas. We'll get to that in a little bit, but let's look at the Atlantic Basin. Atlantic Basin's active again. We have 3 named storms, and we have another area trailing Michael that has a 40% chance of developing within the next 5 days. We'll worry about that with time, but we have a new tropical storm here. We have Tropical Storm Nadine, which is expected. It's not expected to last long. After Saturday, this is expected to fizzle out and no impact to land at all. And then we have Hurricane Leslie, which does not want to go away. It seems. So basically this weekend it weakens to a tropical storm once again, and then it makes another move to the south once again. It remains to be seen whether or not Leslie will fizzle out or not. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But then we have Hurricane Michael, which is looking mighty, mighty, mighty healthy this morning. You can see the eyes basically been defined. The theater bands are only increasing. Hurricane Michael is now a dangerous Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles an hour. Wow. I don't think we've had a major Category 4 hurricane make landfall on the Florida Panhandle, so this is a very dangerous system Top winds 140, movements to the north at 13 miles an hour. Luckily, this will quickly weaken into a hurricane by Thursday night, and then weaken to a tropical storm. Thursday afternoon, and as it moves towards the Carolinas, and then it quickly becomes post-tropical by this weekend, and then just eventually fizzles out and doesn't become a threat. But let's take a look at the exact NHC track, which is the black line which you're looking at, and you can see this. You can see that this track is basically expected to make landfall pretty much just to the east, pretty much in between Panama City Beach and Mexico Beach, and or more importantly Port St. Joe. And that will be a very, very dangerous situation for all of those areas surrounding that. Of course, you'll deal with storm surge, but you'll also deal with a very, very, very heavy structural damage, very heavy wind damage, and just overall heavy rainfall over those areas. And of course, as this goes under talked about, storm surge is also a very big problem with this with these landfalling systems like this. So we'll talk about storm surge in a little bit, but of course, gusty wind, and very, very, very heavy rainfall is obviously a big threat with this thing. This is the rainfall amounts coming from a Hurricane Michael. As you can see, not as big of numbers as we saw with Florence. Maybe around 4 to 6 inches in some spots near the Florida Panhandle. Basically the areas of landfall, Florida Panhandle, near parts of the Carolinas, and maybe even southern Virginia. But you can see rain is not the big issue here. Storm surge is. This is the potential storm surge flooding, and you can see basically with areas surrounding the Panama City Beach, and some of those areas off to the east near St. Mark's, Apalachicola, Carabel, and parts of Florida near Perry, and just to the in the coastline near Horseshoe Beach, and Horseshoe Beach points to the west. That's where they could see storm surge of up to 9 feet above the ground. 9 feet above the ground, and that is very, very dangerous. That's very, very dangerous for a storm surge. And of course, near Port St. Joe, near Apalachicola and East Point, and some of those some of those adjacent areas. And if you're in those areas, you should have evacuated yesterday. So 9 feet above ground, that's very, very dangerous storm surge. We'll take a look at modeling here. This is the 06Z run at the GFS, followed this afternoon at 1 o'clock at 500 millibars. You can see we have that deep amplitude trough that's basically beating down a ridge. Down here, you can see Hurricane Michael making landfall at that point, somewhere in the Florida Panhandle. But down here, our weather situation in North Texas improves. We have a high pressure that's basically just located just to the northwest of us out in the Texas Panhandle. And with that, we'll mention much cooler, crisp air. Of course, we're experiencing it this morning with lows mostly in the low 60s to upper 50s. Highs will only get to the mid 70s today, as is with the case on Thursday. Tomorrow, highs will be in the low 70s with mostly sunny skies, and with lows starting in the mid 50s. Now, how about that for fall weather? But you can see Hurricane Michael is basically located in the Carolinas at this point, basically a tropical storm at this point. As this gets ready to kick off to sea. As you can see for Friday, moisture starts to increase a little bit. We'll mention the chance of a mix of sun and clouds, but I think we'll stay mostly dry on Friday. Highs will be in the low 70s. But here's Saturday as the weekend begins. Saturday, a system from the Pacific starts to move to the northeast. Friday, we'll begin to mention the chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms, mainly during the evening hours. A good chunk of the day stays dry, but mainly during the evening hours, I do anticipate an increase of scattered showers and thunderstorms. Highs will be in the low 60s, and highs will be in the mid 70s. And lows will be in the low 60s. And this is Sunday morning. You can see the remnants of this thing, basically moving to the east. And before it fizzles out, it produces one last moisture burst. And we'll mention the chance of scattered showers, overnight chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms. early Sunday morning. Highs will be in the upper 60s to low 50s, and that'll feel very, very good. And of course, with that front moving through, we'll experience much cooler air, and I think a good chunk of the Sunday remains dry from there. But let's go to Monday of next week. Monday looks very, very cool and crisp with highs in the with highs in low 70s and lows starting no with highs in the low 60s and lows starting out in the mid 40s. These are the temperature anomalies for Monday. Look at that. Wow. The maximum is around 32 degrees below average for some places out in West Texas. And of course, that's very, very big. That's very, very big for this time of the year. For fall fans, you're definitely going to love this. And here's Tuesday, pretty much the same deal. We start out in the upper 40s and lows for lows and highs starting out in the low 60s for Tuesday. A nice, refreshing fall weather event. Here's a week from today, Wednesday the 17th of October. We have troughing just to the north of us, and down here, moisture starts to really increase again. So we'll mention the chance of a few scattered showers and thunderstorms there. Highs will be in the mid 60s. And let's go out 10 days. This is Saturday the 19th of October. Rich, you can see we still have some broad ridging here across the country, and down here that looks like a very, very dry look for for pretty much our country right there. But you can see for the numbers for the next 15 days coming off the GFS ensemble, you can tell that yesterday 2 days ago was our last 80-degree day for a while, but hey, you know that we could still get some very deep cold snaps. We can not cold snaps. We can get some warm growth spurts during October and November, but for the next 15 days at least, highs basically stay in the 60s and 70s, and lows basically stay in the 40s and 50s for a while. And cool fans, you are going to absolutely love this weather for the next several days. That's it for the Texas weather discussion video for today. Our minutes in the blog. Next video here is expected to be posted at around 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you can't catch local TV stations this afternoon at 4, 5, 6, and 10. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and Godspeed.